So this is part two of the Mandlbot and the occult, right? As I said in my last video, this is a fractal pattern, and everything in this picture is actually this. If you could zoom in and see what it looks like, so a Mandlbot is a fractal pattern that can go into infinity in both directions, right? From to the largest scale object to the smallest sized object in our reality and within the spirit realm, right? And what is the Mandlbot saying? It's as above, so below, which is whenever you see a figure standing this way, Jesus Christ is always in this position, Buddha often, right? Any religious figure in this stance with one arm up and one arm down is they're saying look up, but also the hidden part of the occult is looking down, right? Because everybody stares up at God, right? Everybody wants to meditate on God and understand that part of the occult. But as above, so below is also about looking down into the dark nature, right? And I feel like a lot of occultists or people who understand the spiritual realm, they themselves don't understand that part of, you know, understanding God and the occult is also understanding the nature of the dark side, right? Like, so for instance, a lot of people will be like, oh my God, don't read Aleister Crowley because that's the left-hand path and, it's all evil and et cetera, right? But the problem with that is not studying the left-handed path at all leaves you out of balance, right? And when you're out of balance, you're not in harmony. And when you're not in harmony with yourself, you're not in harmony with nature, right? And a lot of these books, like the Picatrix, right? The Picatrix was written by a Muslim. Okay, and I know a lot of people would be surprised to hear that, but the occult was really huge in the Muslim world, especially during the Dark Ages, right? They were advancing all of mathematics and science, while the Middle Ages were kind of stuck, right? But these books, the people who wrote these books, the Picatrix, Grimoire Varium, right? They also talk about the dark side of nature and working with negative entities, demons, etc., right? And why would you want to do that, right? Okay, so when Christ died on the cross and then he went down into hell, right? He was there for what, 3 days? Okay, what do you think he was doing while he was down there? He wasn't battling the demons and fighting them into submission. No, what he was doing when he was there, he was gaining understanding of his own dark nature, right? And too often, right, people are out there fighting the demon part of who they are, right? The dark side, right? People are, you'll see Christians, they're always like, take the armor of God and pray against the devil and all of this stuff, right? And understand, like, I'm not saying that isn't, that is an appropriate thing to do, right? But what I'm trying to say is, when we're born into this reality, right, the way the planets are aligned and those energy from that planet is striking us as we're coming out of the yoni, the vagina, right, we are infused with both good and bad parts of our nature, right? We have positive traits and dark traits, and not all dark traits are bad. Like, for instance, it's like, I live in New York and in New Jersey, right? And I'm always in the city, and people can be, super intense and hostile. And, and if somebody pisses me off, I will just say fuck you to them, because I don't, I'm not going to be like, people treat me like shit, right? So that's an example of a dark side of my nature, right? Where I have this intense energy for propensity towards violence, right? Which is why I served in the military for 15 years and I was in Iraq and Afghanistan, right? So that I could harness that energy, right? So that's a dark part of my personality, like, right? Like, left unchecked, it could be very harmful, right? Like, I could hurt somebody who doesn't deserve it, and I could end up behind bars for it, right? But at the same time, you have to be able to defend yourself and your family, right? Like, I'm not going to let somebody hurt my wife or my child, right? And then on the flip side of that, if you are somebody who is too good natured, if you're always willing to help people and you're doing that at the expense of helping yourself, that positive aspect of you is actually damaging you, right? So what I'm trying to say is that there's a fine balance between good and bad, right? Light and dark. And we all have our dark nature, and too often people are fixated on blocking out the bad and focusing on the good. And until you come to terms with your personal demons, your personal dark side, you're going to be unbalanced. You're going to, especially if you're somebody like me. I'm a Scorpio. I have two ruling houses. One is Pluto and one is Mars. So Pluto is the king of the underworld, death, and then Mars is the god of war, right? So I'm like, part of my personality is constantly stuck in this realm, right? And it took me forever to figure this out and then come to terms with it and accept, like, you know what, these dark parts of my personality, it's okay because that's who I am, right? I'm not going to go to hell because of who I am, right? So by coming to peace with that dark part of my nature and accepting that, right, it brings you balance, right? And when you have balance, then you're going to allow nature to bring in all the things that it wants to you, which is happy life, right? Good health, good relationships, great lovers, a great career, like. And if you're, you see some of these people, right, that, like, there are lots of wonderful people who go to church and, like, they're really trying to be Christ-like and etc. But have you ever spent time around some of these people and all they do is go to church and all they do is, constantly tell you how bad you are and they're, you're doing wrong, you're doing this, right? And it's because all they do is concentrate on the light sort of part of their personality, right? They're not plumbing the depth of the darkness. They are not. They are so focused up here that they're neglecting the roots, the underbelly of who they are and their aspect, right? And what does that do? It makes it so they're top heavy, right? So that how does a tree stand upright in soil? It's got to have strong roots, right? If it's all heavy branches, it's just going to fall over and collapse, right? So staring at this kind of artwork, right? Having artwork around your house, having stuff to look at like this, having stuff like this to meditate opens your third eye, right? This is the Fibonacci ratio. You see it fits perfectly within this. The Fibonacci ratio is a ratio that determines aspect. And aspect relates to what we find visually pleasing, right? So meditate on art, right? But also you must be willing to confront the negative parts of your personality and not just to fight them off and to be in constant opposition to your dark side. You have to accept that you have dark personality traits, that you have dark energies, and be willing to accept them and stop fighting yourself, right? Because it's like, if you are constantly fighting yourself internally, right? Like, what are you doing? It's like civil war, and it's pulling you apart. Okay, so, and now this doesn't apply to everybody, but like for people like me, there's, like a lot of people have started to figure out, like, goth girls, you're right on track with what you're doing, right? You're like embracing that dark energy of yours. And there's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't make you evil. It doesn't make you bad. Good and evil were created by God, okay? It's all part of his creation, right? So if you want to improve your life, watch some of my videos, okay? Give me some likes, give me a subscribe, and have a great day.